What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Hurt Business Podcast. My name is Ferris Wright, and today I am joined by Caged In's host, my boy, Chris DiCarlo. How we doing today, boss?
What's good, my man? How you doing? Always a pleasure to be on the show, man. It's becoming a thing of a tradition, me and you doing these post-fight recaps, man. So, always a pleasure to chop it up with you, my man.
Hell yeah, dude. And we're like taking turns at this point. I got one on my channel, and then the 60, I'm sure you'll have it, and then we'll just
So,
we'll just keep passing it back and forth because by popular demand, that they're seeming to enjoy this, the Cage Titans family.
yeah, man. We typically do like all the pre-fight work, talk to the fighters, so it is nice to have a platform for me and you to come and debrief a little bit, talk about the whole card and kind of run everything back, man. And if anybody's looking for a place to recap the fights, I feel like this is the show to do it on for sure. So everybody that's tuning in, I mean, you can expect us to keep doing these things as long as the people want them. We'll keep bringing them.
As long as Cage Titans is around, we'll be going to these shows, man. But we had the
Facts.
pleasure of being at Cage Titans 59 this past Saturday, and a really anticipated card, one where there was no other MMA going on that Saturday, so it just worked out. Everybody who knew they had Cage Titans, and it lived up to its expectations once again.
Mm.
Starting with the early bout, I showed up a little late, so you can brief us on this one. It was a grappling match. Greg Jones, Johnny Campbell.
Yeah,
What you
man. It
think?
was it was a super competitive grappling fight too, man. Greg had Johnny in some bad positions. He had his back a couple times. Both these guys are veterans of the grappling game too. They're super good at what they do. Um, so yeah, it was a very entertaining grappling bout. I love when Cage Titan starts cards off with like grappling or Muay Thai. Some we'll usually get like the kids grappling at the very very beginning of the card. So I like when they do stuff like this to kind of get the fans warmed up as everybody's still kind of making their way into the building. But two veterans of the game, Johnny Campbell, Johnny Cupcakes Campbell, he's a Cage Titans legend. So it was nice to see him, maybe not fight MMA, but it's always good to see him go in there and get some action, whether it's grappling or MMA. So super competitive bout, man. Ended in a draw, went the full distance. No submissions pulled off in that one, but definitely some entertaining grappling skills between a couple of veterans for sure.
Yeah, man. Johnny Cupcakes is really a fan favorite out here in New England. And you said that you love these early bouts because the people are starting to come in. But I don't know if I'm sure you were there, so obviously you know. But watching the clip, seeing Johnny Cupcakes' entrance, the stands are full. Everybody's the house is packed on
Yeah.
the first fight, which is it's a grappling one. It is even an MMA fight.
Exactly, man. Cage Titans does a good job of filling seats. People were super hype about this card as they should be. It was a stacked card, top to bottom. I don't think anybody wanted to miss any of the action. So they got in there early for this one for sure.
Yeah, and after that, they started pumping these fun amateur fights, starting with
Mhm,
Shane Wellman and Liam
mhm.
Harriman. How'd you see that? What'd you think of that one?
It was a great fight, man. Shane Wellman is, one of these guys coming out of Lausanne's. Super, super tough prospect. I think he's 2-0 now as an amateur. His first one, he put the dude away with a vicious knockout. Second
Mm.
one, he comes out with a submission. And I will say, Shane Wellman is the only person on this card to finish a fight by submission in this card. So I think by default, he wins submission of the night for that one. I don't know if anybody's handing out bonuses, but if there's a submission of the night bonus, it goes to Shane Wellman by default for sure.
By default, man, rear naked choke. That got to be one of the cleanest submissions to get. Just stealing
Yeah.
somebody's back and then sinking in the arm, stealing their neck and snatching necks, cashing checks. Isn't that what JoJo says?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Exactly. Trademarked. But dude, Shane Wellman, man, I'm like super excited to get this guy back in the cage, man. Hopefully, we'll see him again soon. Like I said, 2-0, super impressive prospect. The kick seems to keep getting better every fight. Hopefully, we'll see him back in there in July. If not, maybe we'll see him somewhere else around the region. But hopefully, we'll be seeing him at Cage Titans in July for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure some of these amateur guys love to do those quick turnarounds, get on back-to-back cards. But
Mhm.
his opponent, Liam Harriman, I seen him walking around the arena with a huge welt under his eye. So credit to the striking, he got it done via submission, but the striking clearly
Yeah,
showed.
he was sticking that jab out there hard, man. Those jabs were landing stiff.
Mm.
I think that's what kind of got that eye swollen was he was just kept walking into Shane's jabs. And credit to Liam too, man. He was throwing some tough strikes out there too. Shane was getting hit with a couple shots, but he was able to withstand him a little bit better than Liam was. Liam didn't wear him well, as you can see on his face. Shane's got some heavy hands for sure, and he was sticking that jab in his face the entire fight.
Yeah, so shout out those two, man. Great fight. Next one on the list, Lucas Brock, Matthew Martinez. What'd you think of that one?
It was a good back and forth scrap, man. I honestly, I think Lucas Brock is one of those guys fights out of no stos.
Mm.
They always pump out super good talent out of there. Um, just another one of those back and forth lightweight type bouts, man, with super high energy, super high paced. Those guys went in there and they put on a show for sure, man. It was definitely um, we had a couple of these decision fights in a row, back to back to back decision fights, but there was no down. A lot of people will kind of like look at decision fights as kind of like the downside of the card win because everybody wants to sit there and see like the big finishes. But in all three of these upcoming bouts that we're going to talk about, man, all of these were high pace, all of these were very entertaining, and you couldn't take your eyes away from the action for a second. And you could even like hear the fans and whatever debating who they thought won what round, and there's differing opinions. So that's always fun too to kind of who'd you got, who do you got, who do you got, who do you think's going to win type stuff. So that kind of happened for this one for sure, and then honestly, that carried out through the next couple fights as well.
Yeah, so that next decision that you talked about, the Jack Casey, Joe Atiala, that's the one I
Mhm.
walked in on. So here's where I can come in with a little analysis as well. But a fun
Yeah.
fight here. What'd you think of that one?
That was a super good fight, man. Back and forth for sure. I remember, I think it was round two. Atala had a nice, I think it was an arm bar. He had a good arm bar pull, if I remember correctly. And dude, I gave him that round, but I gave 1 and 3 to Jake. So I had Jake winning that fight overall, but super competitive fight, super back and forth. Both guys came with the energy. Jake was really leaning into the wrestling a little bit. I knew that he was going to come with the pressure, try and get in this guy's face and bring his pressure and his pace to him. And Atala just has that slick jujitsu. He trains over with like Local Lobo and those guys in the Gracie camp. So slick jujitsu all around, and just honestly, just a super entertaining bout uh, for as long as it lasted, man. Went all 3 rounds, super entertaining, all 3 rounds for sure.
Yeah, man, and Jack Caskey's really becoming like a staple at Cage Titans, right? I mean, he's fought
Mhm.
in 3 or 4 times already, and every one of his fights are always entertaining there.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that whenever he comes in, man, you see him on a card, he's going to bring the energy, he's going to bring pace, he's a super tough kid. So whenever you see him on a card, just make sure you're in your seat and you're watching because the kid definitely comes to bang for sure.
Mm. Speaking of kids that come to bang, Andrew Jacobs took on Joe Lexus. Uh, in another fun fight, it was a catchweight one. It was a 193 catchweight bout.
Mhm.
Andrew Jacobs, man, this is the best shape I've ever seen him in. The dude was looking incredible, man. It was really it wasn't surprising because obviously he's an athlete, but
Mhm.
to see the transition and to see him in fight shape versus maybe 3 or 4 months before, it's so
Mhm.
insane to me, and it's impressive. And his fight style is fun, man. He trains over at Lausanne as well, so we think
Mhm.
of the jiu-jitsu, but his striking was there all 3 rounds. The
Yeah, man.
pace, the body kicks. He really showed out in this one. So I was super impressed with him, and it was a good nod. But how would you think of that fight?
I agree with you, man. I definitely agree. It was a good nod. The kid does come in with heavy, heavy hands. We saw it in his last one where he put the guy away by TKO, just clubbing him from top position. So he throws those hands with bad intentions, man, and those things could put anybody else. So shout out to Joe Lexus for coming in there, making
Yeah,
it a good fight with him. And yeah, props to Jacob's trainers, man, and his nutritionists. Those guys got him looking good, man. He's looking in great shape. So um, you know. I'm sure he felt great in there too. Putting it all together with the training and then just being in just great physical shape as well. All that encompassed into one. I'm sure he felt great on fight night. He looked great too, man. He didn't look like he was getting too tired in there. Cardio looked like it held up.
yeah,
He still had his strength and everything. So shout out to Jacobs, man. The kid put on a show, and shout out to Joe Lexus, man, because I've seen him fight at the Cage Titans cage before. He always comes and brings it. He's always a fun fighter to watch as well. So props to those two guys, man, because they definitely just didn't disappoint anybody for the pre-card, man. It shit was fire for sure.
yeah, man. Set us up for a fun night. A random stat I just thought about: the guys who showed up in UFC Fight Kit,
Mm.
0-3,
Damn. That's
0-3.
crazy, huh? They were yeah, those are the ones they were wearing the Venom fight shorts in
Yeah,
Cage, right?
yeah. There was three
Damn, yeah.
different fighters that did that. All of them, unfortunately, resulting in losses.
Damn, that's crazy, man. I didn't even think of that. So we're gonna need you with your little stat book more often, huh, Prince?
Hey man, that just came out when you were talking, so shout out you. But the next one was for the Cage Titans middleweight championship. Jude Offer versus Colin Robinson, a guy who you've spoken to a few times
Mhm.
before this. What did you think coming into it, and then expectations versus reality? How did they meet up?
Yeah, I mean, coming into the fight, I think the game plans from both sides were pretty obvious, kind of where they wanted to keep it. Colin is very technical in his stand up. His Muay Thai is very good. He likes to keep the range and use his long arms and long legs to try and pick people apart from range. And then Jadoffer, we saw his last bout at Cage Titans. He got knocked out by David Burke. His following fight after that, he came with a big finish in the first round. Get back in the W column. And Jadoffer clearly came in with a game plan, and it worked out for him. He put the pressure on early. It was in Colin's face. Definitely had a very wrestling, grappling heavy game plan, and it worked out for him. Man, he went 50-45 across the board. Ended up dominating all 5 rounds. But I know Colin personally. I know that he's going to take this loss on the chin and come back stronger from it. A super young kid. I think he's only like 24 years old.
Mm.
So much talent. The fact that he was in this bout for the interim title is a testament in itself. But props to Jadoffer, man. He went out there, he did his thing, he showed out, he dominated the fight 50-45. I don't think there's any debate about that. Now, hopefully, we get the unification belt. We run it back. David Burke versus Jadoffer part 2 and unify those belts for sure.
That makes the most sense, man, and that's a fight that you could sign me up for. I mean, it ended rather fast in their first
Mhm.
matchup, but that could happen to anybody. Maybe get caught with a shot too early and whatever, whatever. But credit to Jude Offer in this one against Colin. He really, like you said, stuck to the game plan. That's a testament to that discipline,
Mhm.
sticking with it regardless. Um, Colin, yeah, he really couldn't get going. Unfortunately, couldn't get into his rhythm. I felt like if he was able to defend some takedowns and hang out on the feet a little bit longer, he really would have dominated this fight. But shout out Jadal for making it to the ground and in the clinch and dominating for all that it lasted.
Exactly, man. He won that fight fair and square, deservedly so, to be the interim champion. But yeah, like I said, man, now it's just time to unify. David Burke is the undisputed champion right now, so there needs to be some type of unification belt coming soon. I'm sure that's something that's already in the works. But that's the one that I'm most excited for now, for sure.
Yeah, man. That middleweight division's fun over at Cage Titans. So look forward to that
It
at
is. They got a deep division, man. Low key, it's pretty nice over there for sure.
CT60, man. Hopefully we can get that matchup there if you're listening,
Jeez.
Mike. But moving on to the next uh, amateur title fight against champion Miguel Silvesin, Sergey
Persumko.
Persumko.
There you go.
Took me a second there, but
That's good.
unbelievable fight here. You mentioned the Gracie Jiu Jitsu earlier.
Mhm.
Showed out in this one, man. Sergey looked really, really damn good against a guy who is well known to Cage Titans, is clearly a fan favorite. I
Mhm.
mean, Miguel, hands down, whenever he was able to stick around on the feet, get it back there, that crowd erupted like no other, man.
Bro.
Everybody was on their feet screaming. There was so many pink shirts in the stands,
Yep,
some Miguel MF, which are sick merch, by the way. Need
for
to get me
sure.
one of those. But
Yes.
everybody was showing love, and that crowd was, man, I've been at like 5 or 6 of these events at this, like, to this point, and I think those might have been the loudest pops that I've heard at that Hall Memorial. Um,
Yeah,
so man,
man, they're definitely up there for sure. The crowd definitely loves him, bro. And how could what? There's nothing like not to love about that kid. He comes in with crazy energy every time. There's no quitting the kid. He's coming out there to do damage and to coming out there to put on the best performance as possible. It ended up being a split decision. Did not go his way. But props to Sergey winning that belt fair and square. It was a super close fight. Um, I don't know what the plan is there. Maybe they run that one back. I know typically you don't run, amateur title fights back like that, but I just think with how exciting that fight was for, the entirety of it, went all 5 rounds, just there's no quitting either of those guys. I saw Sergey. There's a couple of times where I was like coming out. I was like, okay, so now this is the time where he's gonna come off the stool and be gassed and gonna lose a step. But even though at the end of every round he looked tired, he found a new gear at the beginning of every round and went out there and grinded it out. I couldn't believe that his cardio held up the way that it did because there
right,
were, like I said, there were some times where I thought that he was going to be too tired to continue and too tired to fight through it. But a testament to him and his cardio and his team and whatever they were telling him in the corner really got him up and hype off the stool and was able to give him the gas to finish that one out. And it was a good thing it did because he went out there and he ended up pulling off a split decision win. I know Miguel is a talented ass fighter, man. The kid is there's no like I said, there's no quitting that kid. He comes out there to put on a show every time. That's why the hall gets so loud for him every time. These are two of the best amateur lightweights in the region, man. So it's a pleasure to watch guys like that fight against each other because a lot of these times fighters like that will stay away from each other and maybe not want to test themselves. So it's great that we got to see a fight like that take place for championship. And big props to Sergey for pulling it off, man. It was an absolute banger of a fight.
Yeah, man. And where we were standing was like just so happened to be in Sergey's corner. So the point that you made about him being tired, it was real evident right in front of us. He
Hmm.
looked winded at the end of every round. So yeah, man, I'm doubling down on your compliment. That he really deserves some credit for sticking through every single round and putting on a pace that Miguel couldn't match, unfortunately. But Miguel took it on the chin, man. We seen him just chilling in the crowd, hyping up his teammates for their fights that were upcoming, just being a good sport about it. So I'm excited for whatever these two dudes do next. If it is a rematch, sign me the fuck up, man. These guys could headline a Cage Titans card, and everybody would be all in.
For sure, man. Like you said, you heard the pops that Migs got in the hall, man. Doesn't matter who he fights next, he's gonna keep getting pops like that regardless. Um, so whenever Miguel's on the card, whenever Sergey's on a card, we know that those are fights they need to be sitting in your seat for and tuned into because no matter who they're fighting, they're always bringing the pace 100%, and they're always there to entertain. And they have the fight skills, they have the personality, and they have the energy to always carry their fights, and that's why the crowd loves them so much, man. That's why the crowd was so loud during that event, man. It was nuts to witness for sure.
So and new Cage
And
Titans lightweight champion.
mhm.
Congrats, Sergey.
Congrats, man. It was definitely an impressive showing for sure. I can't wait to see what both these guys do next. Definitely.
Hell yeah, dude. Moving on, the biggest flyweight on planet Earth, Joe Poirier, took on John Medina, who was making his pro debut.
Mm.
And this was one of those fights, man. This was just another Joe Poirier in and out, quick. I'm gonna stand up with you until you shoot, and then I'm gonna take a dominant position and just ground and pound you until the ref pulls me off you. That's exactly how the fight played out right there. Uh,
Exactly.
so credit to Joe, the biggest flyweight on planet Earth. Give him a flex real quick because that's what he always does. And also, Joe, you owe me a shirt.
Yeah.
You owe me
Joe
a
owes
shirt.
me a shirt too, but that's on me. I was supposed to link up with him pre-fight and grab one, but I ended up losing track of time and I had to get out of the event early, so I didn't end up getting my shirt. But Joe, next time I see you, I'm getting that thing for sure.
Yeah, same here, Joe. You said you were gonna come back and see me, and that was the last I seen Joe for the rest of the night. So hopefully next time, Joe, I'll get one of those orange biggest flyweight on planet Earth shirts because I would definitely rock it. Uh,
Definitely.
so shout out, Joe. Great win.
Yeah,
Um,
man, that kid is definitely one of the biggest prospects in the region right now, man. He's doing exactly everything that he needs to do. He's training his ass off. He's not taking any days off. He's taking matchups that make sense for him. Each matchup that he's been taking is a level above the next, and I think that's exactly the type of ladder that you need to climb when you're in the beginning of your pro career. So whenever Joe decides to get in there next, hopefully it's July 22nd. Selfishly, because I just love watching the kid fight, and this one happened to be a little quick, so maybe he didn't get it. He got out of there pretty healthy. But obviously up to Joe whenever he decides to get back in there. But I'm sure me, you, and the fans would love to see him back in there in July. But whenever it is, we'll be tuned in for sure. The kid's got something about him, and he's got it. You know what I mean?
yeah, dude, 100%. And it's funny because when I had Mike on my show, I was asking him about Joe, and he was like, I tell him all the time to stop marketing yourself as the biggest flyweight because when you do that, it makes it hard for me as your promoter to match fights for you, and nobody wants to fight you at that point.
Yeah,
Uh,
that is true, man. I know that Joe has had some, especially that's part of the reason why he had to come up from the Amis because he was having a tough time getting fighters that wanted to fight him. So now he's a bigger pool of prospects now that he's a professional. So hopefully he doesn't run into that problem anymore. But that does make sense that it is a little bit of a hard selling point to sell your fighter to another guy when that's the moniker they're going by, you know?
right, but at the same on the same tongue, it's the sick ass nickname.
100%, man. Shit's fire for sure.
It's fucking dope. So I hope it doesn't go nowhere, man.
Mhm.
Uh, but speaking of going nowhere, short fuse Aaron Hughes took on Jake Hitzingbaugh, and I was really excited for this fight. I was really, really excited because Jake I watched his last fight for the first time. That was the first time me watching him fight,
Mhm.
and that dude fucking bring it. I know it was a submission loss, I believe, but there were multiple points where he could have won the fight. He was in a good position, and it was entertaining for every minute and every second of the fight. And Aaron Hughes on the other side, that dude always comes to fight. That
Mhm.
dude every single time out, it's always a banger. And just watching his fight camp, I'm always intrigued to see his diet, just because he's like a nutritionist and he
Mhm.
went to school for all that stuff. So his mind in that aspect is super interesting to me. Uh, but then it comes to the fight, and it ended pretty quick. Uh, Aaron was on his back, had Jake in his guard, and he was just unloading these elbows. And the first few, with my eyes, I thought they were legal. They were a good position, and then some of those last ones definitely were in the back of the head, and it definitely looked like it compromised Jake. So I'm glad they stopped it when they did, and hopefully run it back, man, because these two come to bang, and this was a silent sleeper on this one.
For sure. You know, Aaron Hughes is always one of those guys that brings it. He brings that intensity to every fight. And Jake Hickson, like you said, man, his last fight was super impressive inside the cage, Titans cage. So the matchup made a lot of sense to me. Going into it, I knew that it was going to be super competitive. I honestly couldn't have predicted who I thought was going to win. I wasn't able to see the fight live because I had to dip out early due to a family emergency. So I had to miss the back half of this card, unfortunately. So a lot of my takes and stuff are coming from the post fight that I've seen on social media and whatnot. So, but just seeing the strikes that I could see on social media, it's hard to take a full stance on how I see it going, but I do think the no contest was a good call. I don't believe there should have been a DQ. I think the no contest was a good call, and I believe that they should run it back if they both decide to. I know there's been a lot of back and forth going on social media between the two and between Aaron and Jake's team and whatnot. But
Have they? I've totally not seen any of this. What have they
yeah,
been saying?
there's been a little bit of back and forth. You know, Aaron feels as though um, the strikes were unintentional. Um, Jake's team feels as though maybe the strikes were intentional and that he should have been more under control of his weapons. So I don't know if they're going to be able to meet in the middle and make this fight happen again. I saw something about Jake's team wanting to go and um, get the no contest switched to a DQ so that it would be a DQ win for Jake Hicksonbaugh. Aaron obviously does not agree with that. So there's been a lot of back and forth going on between the two sides.
Mm.
But you know, from my point of view, I say, you know, we just get back in there and run it back, you know, because it was a very close matchup between these two. I think they were very evenly matched, and I think that it was unfortunate the way that the fight ended, and that I think if we ran it back, there's that little bit more of added intensity, which makes it even more intriguing to the fans for sure. Now that this first one ended the way that it did, it was unfortunate, but you know it does add another storyline to this one. Now, if we can get this one back in there, I think the fans will be in for a treat for sure.
Yeah, dude. 100%, man. I didn't know any of that drama was going on. It's a really tough
It's
situation just all in all. So,
It is one of those things. Like whichever way you look at it, you can kind of see it from both sides. You know, it's a tough call. The referee had a tough job to do that night. But you know, for me, I think that the no contest was a fair call, and I think that we run this one back for sure.
yeah, sign me up, man. Sign
Mhm.
me up. That shit was awesome. Uh, but moving on to the next bout, uh, this is a gentleman we both spoken to many times, a guy who's just knocking down these challenges, and this is by far my favorite
Mhm.
showing by him. Mr. Andrew Valdina took on Will Smith, and what were your thoughts on this one? I know you weren't there, but
Mhm.
just seeing what you've seen on social media and
I will.
expectations versus reality.
Yeah, this fight did go, you know, 2 full rounds, which, you know, has been the longest pro fight of Valdina's career so far. Definitely his toughest test of his pro career. You could argue maybe the toughest test of his whole career. You know, he had a couple tough ones in his
Mhm.
Amis with, you know, Arthur and Pofu and Tyler Siegfried Stevens. Those guys, very tough test for him. But this one stands up there with those guys as well. Very tough test. Veteran of the game, Will Smith. The guy always comes to bring it. And he had a big win over Cam Arnold in his last one, who was a 2-0 pro. and people were giving Arnold the edge in that one, and Will Smith was able to come out there and get the W. So very very tough test for Valdina, who was putting his 3-0 record on the line. Unfortunately, like I said, I wasn't able to see the entire fight, so I am very excited for whenever the full fight does get released on social media. I'll be running to YouTube to watch that one for sure. But the clips that I did see, Valdino, that striking is coming along great, man. Shout out to Pete Luciani, his striking coach, for I ran into Pete the other day actually around town, which is funny enough. And we were talking a little bit, and
What a character that dude is, huh?
love him, man.
Yeah,
Fucking
he's
great,
awesome.
great kid. But dude, you can tell that Valdina's starting to find his power now, which is scary. Before he was putting strikes on people with volume, and wearing them down with volume. Now his strikes are, he's finding some power, which is scary for a lot of
Yeah.
these guys in the region right now. Man, the kid's 4-0, just beat his toughest test. I think the sky's the limit for this kid. Honestly, man, he has a bright, bright future. And for Will Smith on the other side of the coin, man, we know what he can bring to the table. We know that he's a tough test for anybody. We know that he can go out there and win these fights. He's no slouch. He's no stepping stone. The kid is very talented. And it was just Valdina's night.
Yeah, it was, man. And Valdina, this was like you said, his toughest test, and it showed in the ring, in the octagon. It showed that he was tested. It
Mm,
wasn't like his previous fights where he just got to a dominant position. And Valdina always makes it look easy, but he gets to a dominant position and then puts a guy in a bad, vulnerable spot,
mhm.
sinks in a submission, and then all she wrote. This was one on the feet, man. This was 10 minutes of let's stand here and scrap, and Will got the best of some exchanges, and then Valdina will come right back. And shout out Pete, man. That striking is really, really coming together. The kicks, the punches, like the fluidity and all of it. And then putting the power behind the right shots where
Mm,
it was so awesome, man. And initially when the doctor stopped it, everybody was like, what? Why? Well, it was maybe premature. It was a doctor stoppage in between the second going into the third. And then once you see Will start turning his head and looking at the crowd, you can see his lip was definitely
mm.
like maybe not as bad as Overeem, but it was definitely
Yeah.
like a slice like that. You know what I mean? So it was a good stoppage. And shout out Valdita, man. Those guys over at the Mom's Basement put on another show, another 2-0
Mm.
show. And how much of an advantage is that, right, for Valdina and Joe to have each other in the same camp to sit
Huge.
there and work together all the time?
Huge, man. They're similar sized guys too. So whenever they're training with each other, they're training with guys that are similar size to the guys that they're gonna be fighting in the cage, man. I think that's a huge advantage. Like I said, these are two of the top prospects in our region. The fact that they're in the same room together every day, they say iron sharpens iron, and I think it's very true for these two men. And anytime that they're on a card, whichever card it is, whichever promotion is lucky enough to have them, they're bringing entertainment and they're bringing talent. They're bringing everything that you need from anything that you're like a checklist of things that you're looking for in a top prospect. These kids have it, man. And yeah, definitely two of the ones that everybody should be keeping their eye on now if they weren't tuned in before. And I will say this too. I want to say this a little bit. The fact that there was no mixed martial arts this weekend and the amount of media coverage that Cage Titans got for this card was pretty minimal. It's a shame that a lot of these bigger media promotions weren't tuned in for this one, man, and covering this one as well because they missed out on an absolute banger of a card. Some very very top prospects, some very very high level entertaining fights. So shame on them for not sending a guy out and covering this event because like I said there was no other major organizations
Yeah.
fighting on this night. This should have been, and it was a big night for Cage Titans, man. They're going to get their shine for sure. But I think that there should have been some more media coverage on these guys for sure. Because like I said, two of the top prospects we just talked about, and then you had Mitch Raposo, and then you had this big heavyweight banger, man. This card, just sells itself, and um, you know, I think that it should have got more shine in the major MMA media. But that's what the guys like us are for, man. We'll hold it down for the region while we're here, man, for sure.
Hell yeah, we will, and that's exactly what we're gonna do. But you also, we should definitely call out these bigger MMA platforms because this is for the world, man. These are great fights that everybody's not getting the chance to see. And I think the pay per view for Cage Titans is like $20 or something. Like
Mm,
it's not 60 or 80 or whatever the UFC and those boxing pay per views are charging. And it's just as good fights, man. So we should definitely call them out. They definitely should have been in Plymouth Memorial Hall. Um, and shout out Valdina, shout out Will. Great fight.
mm.
And we'll see what's next for those two guys. I think
Yeah, man.
Valdina said he wanted to take some time off.
Yeah, I
Rightfully
mean,
so.
rightfully so, man. The guy's been going back to back to back to back, 4-0, deserves a little bit of time off, before he starts taking that next leap because he just beat Will Smith, man. So now, as you can see, the way his career's been going, he's been taking tougher and tougher guys. So
Mm.
this next test for him, I'm sure, is going to be even tougher than the Will Smith fight, man. So, Valdina has earned his time off, man. Enjoy the summer a little bit, go out there, enjoy your social life a little bit, man. Get out of the gym. I've been telling him this all the time. Like the kid loves to do what he's doing. He does it every day, day in, day out. No complaints. But sometimes you need to take a little time off and enjoy yourself a little bit, man. Enjoy this W, Valdina. I know you're listening. Enjoy this W, man, and we'll see you when you get back in there for sure.
Go get Mai Tais for the boys, Valdina.
For sure. Have one for me.
Yeah. Speaking of fun fights, man, Mitch Raposo took the stage against Tyler Smite. And this was another one of those fights. I said this a few minutes ago about a few other fights, but this is one I was like really, really looking forward to because on one side you have this tough finale guy who got cut for the house, maybe a little bit like not it was a little unrightful. It was a
Mm,
little stingy the way they did him, but some vengeance on his shoulder, right? Whoever he fights next is going to feel some wrath that he's maybe never unleashed on anybody.
mm,
He could biggest opportunity of his life just to rip it away from him. That's pretty fucked for one, and two, like that creates a monster. And then on the other hand, you have Tyler Smite,
mm,
who's no slouch at all. That dude always comes to bang. We've seen him at Cage Titans as an amateur, in wars, as a pro, in great fights, and he
mhm,
always comes to bring it. So this was, I know a lot of people didn't think it was 50-50, but in my head, I thought anybody can win this fight. This is so up in the air that we'll just see how it plays out. And it definitely ended a lot faster uh, than I had thought coming into it. But man, that's credit to Mitch and the levels that he is. Man, that dude's really ready for whatever's next. That next level, I think Mitch is right there. Uh,
mhm.
but what did you think of the display?
I think in the region, man, I don't think there's anybody that's more ready for the next step than Mitch. I think that he's been a top prospect and one of the biggest fighter in our region for a while, and deservedly so. There's a bunch of other top guys that deserve to be at that next level as well, and Mitch is at the top of that list for me. Um, he went out there and did what Mitch Raposo was supposed to do. He took a 2-0 kid and put him away quick. I think a lot of the pressure was on his shoulders, knowing what could have happened had he dropped this one for sure. But he went out there and he did the kid's money, man. Every time you see him in the cage, man, he's very polished. He's definitely a next level talent for sure. And big props to Tyler Smythe, man. The kid took this fight on short notice versus probably the toughest fight that he could have taken in New England, like hands down. This is probably the toughest fight that he could have accepted. But that's just a testament to how tough the kid is, man. And he knows the level that he's at, and he knows that he's ready to fight levels of talent like this. And I don't think that his stock drops literally at all for this loss. Um, it just shows it's a testament to how hard he's working, how ready he is, and his time is coming for sure. This one loss on his record is not going to be a blemish at all. It just shows the grit and the toughness that this kid has, and the readiness that he has to get in there and put it all on the line. Because had he gone and get this W, man, it skyrockets him into that next tier and that next level for sure. So I think it was a risk worth taking. I think that he is going to go in there and he's going to learn more from this experience than any other fight that he could have taken on that Cage Titans card. So props to him for showing up and taking this fight and putting everything that he had into it. It's a little I'm a little salty that it ended as fast as it did, because I would have loved to see the back and forth between the two. I would have loved to see what Smythe was bringing to this contest, man. But testament to how ready Mitch Raposo is for that next level for sure.
Yeah, man, he's training with some killers at Regiment. He's in the Tyson cheerleader
Mhm.
camp. Like he's kids all over the place, man. So it's inevitable at this point. But you mentioned a point where I was thinking about this all week. Like, could you imagine if Tyler won?
Mm.
Like where that puts him, and like that I think if he would have won that fight, then the big MMA promotions or media companies have been like, "Holy shit, that Mitch Raposo was fighting? That's the dude he lost." Like,
Yeah.
I feel like then, which is shitty because they only focus on the negative, but that's
Yeah.
besides the point.
Yeah, man.
Um,
For sure, that would have been insanity. Would have been insane. Would have been
Crazy.
a massive upset. I will say that betting was allowed on this card as well, and I think Mitch was one of the biggest favorites on the card. So had that gone the other way,
Mm,
we'd be talking about a massive upset in that regard. But tremendous performance by Mitch, man. And I can't wait to see Tyler Smythe get back in there, man. I know this kid is gonna be on that level of Mitch Raposo. I think he is gonna reach that level and take that turn into that next step of his career. But just a little setback, and then we'll see him get back to the W's in the next one, I'm sure.
yeah, man. I mean, his original fight was it Jacob Joy?
Oh, it
Joy?
was Jeff Joy.
Jeff Joy.
That would have
Fuck,
been
I always butcher the first
that
name.
would have been a great fight too, man. That would have been a great fight too. That one
Yeah,
was when I first saw that one was scheduled, I was like, okay, this is gonna be that was even a step up and a test for Tyler Smythe. Jeff Joy is no slouch, man. That kid comes to bring it every fight.
mhm,
Um, so
and he was there. He was there on Saturday
of
watching.
course, he's always there, man. He lives in the Plymouth Memorial Hall.
Yeah, man. I mean, that fight's fun enough. Let's do it next. I mean, it still didn't lose any excitement. It
No,
didn't lose any stock at all. I'm still all in.
I am too, man. That would be a fun one for sure. Hopefully, whatever happened to Jeff, hopefully we get that cleared up. And whether we see these two fighting again or these two fighting different opponents, I'm hoping to see both those guys soon. And I hope that I don't have to see Mitch back in the regional scene, even though selfishly I would love to as a fan. But hopefully we're going to start seeing him in some UFC Venom fight shorts soon. Fighting at the next stage. Hopefully UFC Boston. That's the
Yeah,
dream. That's the dream, But if it's not there, hopefully it's somewhere in the UFC. They have like fight cards all the time.
yeah.
Like he said, he'll be ready to step in and get his shot when he can. So, yeah, man. Hopefully that's where we'll be seeing Mitch next for sure.
And to quote Mitch, he said, "UFC, stop fucking overlooking me."
For
Great
sure, man.
promo by you, bro.
Hey,
Great
man.
promo, Mitch.
The kid knows how to talk, man. He knows how to sell himself.
Yeah.
He brings all those aspects of a good fighter. Great fighter, great talker, very entertaining.
Mm,
He has the whole full package, man. He's ready.
mm. It's up for him. Speaking of up, Trevor Goody took on Jack Cogden. See what I did there?
I did
Tall,
see.
up. Come on, man.
I
Come
seen it,
on.
man. I seen it. I give you your props.
Appreciate that, my man.
That's
But
right.
another fun fight, man. Jack Cogden is the truth.
Kid's a
That
real deal, man.
that kid, that dude is the truth. I tell you, man. I mean, I definitely seen this being a tough test for him. I
Mhm,
definitely seen him. I thought it'd be a longer fight. I thought this was one that would go the distance. Him trying to figure out the range, maybe some exchanges on the feet, maybe on the
mhm.
ground. My man, that shit was on the feet until it wasn't.
Yeah.
Until Trevor just. I mean, the body work by Jack was unbelievable. He was really invested in finding Trevor's core with the switch kicks,
Mhm,
the body kicks, and it was finished with a straight to the body and just
mhm.
clean work, man. So if you ask me, Jack Cogden is the truth.
Yeah, my man's about, one or two more wins away, knocking on a welterweight title shot for sure. He's right in that picture. A win over Trevor puts him in that conversation for sure. Um, I figured the same as you, man, with the height and the reach of Trevor. I figured maybe it would have taken Jack a little bit longer to kind of figure him out because that's a puzzle that's hard to crack.
Mm,
There's not a lot of guys you can get in the gym to simulate a Trevor Goody. I mean that's a tall man right there.
yeah.
But Jack is also a big guy as well, so maybe he didn't find it as difficult as maybe all of us were expecting him to. But I've heard him say this before. I don't know where I heard him say this, but he does use his side kicks a lot to
Mm,
kind of like use his range. So he does have long arms. He keeps that sideways kind of stance a little bit. He throws his legs out long to, kind of help him control his own distance and find his own timing. And I think, the way he worked that body against Trevor was beautiful, man. And
clean.
those liver shots, bro, like, as lifelong boxing fans and mixed martial arts fans, those shots will turn the lights off on anybody, bro. So the fact if you can get one of those clean like Jack did,
Mm,
it's over for anybody at that point. Those liver shots are no joke, man. So props to Jack. The kid is up there, man. Like look at the amount of talent that we had on this card as far as like young undefeated prospects that literally the sky is the limit for them. Jack Congdon. We talked about Valdina. We talked about Joe Poirier, Mitch Raposo, dude, absolutely stacked with up and coming talent and prospects and guys that have that potential to make it to the next level. So it's a pleasure to see them progress in every fight so far, man. Whenever we see Jack Congdon on a card, I know that we're in for a treat because the guy is brutal, he's vicious, he's talented, and excellent, excellent performance against his toughest test to date, and he made it look easy like he always does, man.
If he dies, he dies.
Hey, man, the resemblance is uncanny for sure, man.
Yo,
And the way he's putting people down, man, it's a comparison that I don't think's going away anytime soon.
yeah, yeah. I can't unsee it now.
For sure, man, for sure.
That shit's awesome. But speaking of
Shout
my
out Jack, man.
shout out Jack, the truth. I don't know if he has a nickname, but
He
the
doesn't. Don't ask him about it either. He hates it.
oh, that's right. I think I did. I do remember hearing him talk about that. All right.
It's so
No
funny.
nickname unless you want to go with the truth. I think it has a nice ring for you.
There you go.
Speaking of fun fights, Pat Casey took on Marty Navis, who's always in fun fights.
Mhm.
Uh, but Pat, man, he really proved the point, man. That was. Did you? What did you catch of this fight?
I
What'd you
only
think?
caught I only honestly, I only caught the finish, but
Mm,
what I can say about the finish is you see Pat Casey, you see his build, that's a thick boy right there, you know what
yeah.
I mean? If he gets top position on you, there's not a lot of guys in that division that are gonna be able to get him off. So, that's I'm assuming that's where he wanted this fight to go because Marty is taller than him, longer than him.
Mm,
The stand up in the stand up exchanges in the distance is kind of Marty's go to. But Pat Casey, man, the boy's a brawler. He comes on there every time to do absolute damage. And like I said, I was only able to unfortunately see the finish. But like I took away from what I took away from that is what I just said earlier. If he gets on top of you, he's going to be hard to get off. First of all, he's going to be hard to get off. Second of all, he's going to be absolutely looking to punch a hole through your head. And I think he accomplished both those things from what I saw.
yeah, man. I mean, speaking of punching holes through people's heads, he was on the feet. Like you can tell when he was throwing punches, like they had some vicious intention.
Mhm.
Like he was trying to knock Marty's head off, and yeah, man. I mean, props to him. He made a real statement, and he hopped on the mic and talked about how there's levels to this and how much more advanced he is than all like the rest of these 170-pounder guys in the region, and they're not lining him up for him. He's gaining frustration about
Mhm.
not getting a chance to fight these top guys, and he made a real statement with Marty. Man, that's a big win.
For sure, man. The guy's an absolute brawler. I've seen him fight in some other promotions as well, and he brings that same energy every time. He's obviously very entertaining to watch, and hopefully we'll get to see him back in the Cage Titans cage again, man. Because I always enjoy watching the kid fight, regardless of what promotion he fights in or who he's fighting. It's always fun to watch him, man. He's brutal for sure.
So hopefully we get him at CT 60 with another big name 170-pounder. Which, if you think about it, this division's stacked. We just talked about Jack.
Hmm. Yeah,
Trevor's in
Trevor.
there.
Yeah.
Like
JoJo's
there's
the champ.
JoJo's the champ, it seems like JoJo's gonna stick around 55. It doesn't seem like
Yeah,
he wants that 70, maybe just a one and done or whatever. But yeah, man, Pat Casey's another dude, man. That we gotta really watch out for moving forward.
definitely, man. I 100% agree.
But don't let that 10-6 record fool you either. I know a lot of people see that and they may think, well, he has 6 losses. Most of these guys who are on the regional scene, 8-0, 9-0, 7-1. Like these records are a lot more pretty, but that's just those are just numbers, like age, as they say. He can smash anybody you put him up against. Uh,
That just means the boy's got a lot of experience, man. That's it.
mm,
You know?
mm. Amen. Speaking of experience, the co-main to this bout was just feels like two veterans of Cage Titans in the local scene.
Mhm.
Jacob Bond took on Zach D. Sapatino, who I enjoy really watching that dude just do anything. Like we went upstairs to see kind of the guys warm up and see what the how it was looking upstairs, and everybody's hitting pads, moving around, breaking a sweat, and then you see Zach just like sitting in some chairs with his gloves on, just
Mhm.
chilling.
Yeah, man. He's a very chill, level-headed dude, man. I had the pleasure of having him on my show at one point. I think it was before his last fight. Super good dude, man. I love talking to him. Super nice guy. But dude, when I saw this matchup, I was like, dude, we got two absolute like veterans of the cage, man. Two absolute guys that they have all the talent between the two of them, man. So I knew going into it that this one was going to be fun for the fans for sure.
And Jacob came through, man. That experience, he really. I think Zach at some point he started to just get winded after that. Maybe towards the end of the second round, definitely in the third, he was just really tired, and Jacob just did not lose momentum, and he just rode it out to the end, and ultimately gained the unanimous decision. And then the more important part is he went on the socials, and him and JoJo had a little back and forth that I seen, in which if that's a rematch that Cage Titans wants to make, if JoJo doesn't get that UFC Boston call up, sign me up.
Agreed, man, 100%. I think that the part two of that fight's kind of been a long time coming. Um, I think that it's a fight that makes sense. Jacob Bond is a guy that comes out here and he brings entertaining fights every single time. The guy has no quit in him ever. He's now on like a little bit of a winning streak now. He beat DSAB, which is one of Gianetti's boys. So that's you got a little bit of storyline there. You got the storyline from their first fight. JoJo missed weight. Um, Paul was supposed to get the rematch. That kind of never ended up happening. So now we can finally maybe make that one happen next. I know JoJo's put it up on his social media as that's what his plan for the next step is. I'm sure Bond would accept that belt as well. I think I saw in his post fight that he was worried. He said like if JoJo can commit to making the 155 again, and hopefully like there's no mishaps this time, then that's something that he would be interested in again. For JoJo, man, I think it makes the most sense. It's a very entertaining fight. Everybody loves JoJo. Everybody loves Jacob Bond. The hall will go crazy for it. That fight would happen in July, and I know JoJo's going out to California for training camp pretty soon. So he's going to be getting ready for a fight in July, or he'll be getting ready for um, a call from the UFC if they want him on that UFC Boston card, or anything in between. I know he's just going out to get ready. So I'm sure if we can make that one happen, everybody's gonna love it, and it's never. I know it's not gonna disappoint. It's gonna be an absolute bang. Because the first fight between those two guys was a good fight as well until JoJo ended up finishing it. I think it was the end of the fourth, I
Mm.
believe, if I remember correctly. It's been a while since that was my first Cage Titans event. Actually, was that fight. So yeah, it's been a minute, but it's a good one. The first one, and I'm sure the rematch would be just as good for sure.
Yeah, man, that's a headliner for sure, right there. Main event, July 22nd, Cage 960. See you there,
Yeah, man. The potential lineup for that one's looking pretty good, man.
bro. For real, man. For seriously. Uh, but the main event of the evening, the heavyweights, the first ever crowning of the heavyweight champion for Cage Titans, goes to Ras Hilton, man. I didn't
Mhm,
see this one playing out this way. He took on Brandon Battles, who's a local guy. Had the arena really flooded with his people.
mhm.
Everybody wearing the yellow shirts that he has. Nice shirts, by the way. As I say that about everybody, but hey, man.
Hey, man, we love the local fighter merch, man.
Yeah, man. They're this is the future, but yeah, man. Ras really showed his experience. He was in a horrible position for the entire first round. He was
Mhm.
on the bottom against the guy, D1 wrestler Brandon Battles, who has like what, two, three victories via ground and pound smashing. So he really Ras hung in there. He took Battles' best shots, and I just think Battles really winded in that first round. He just threw all the punches he could, and when that second round came back, he was just winded, man. And he shot a few sloppy takedowns. Ras just was able to defend, stay on the feet, and ultimately get the stoppage on the feet. And the one that I thought maybe could have came a little bit sooner, but you know, it was a good fight and new.
Mhm.
Ras Hilton heavyweight champion, and once Ras won, there was like nobody there. It felt like everybody was there to see Brandon win.
Yeah.
Uh, Once that didn't happen, Ras's people, the few that were in the arena, definitely let him hear it, and it was a good moment. So props to Ras. Shout out Brandon. Excited to see whatever you do next. Hope you're feeling better. And yeah, man, what did you think of it?
So this was the fight that I probably heard about the most post event. I had, obviously my guys Steve and Mike were in the building, holding it down for cages. And while I was gone,
Shout out
um,
those guys, man.
yeah,
Cool
good,
cats you got.
good people, man, good people. So Steve was hitting me up, telling me about the fight, telling me, about how Battles was just absolutely dominating in the first round. Potential 10-8 round one for
For
Battles.
sure. Yeah.
Um, maybe just blew his wad trying to get the finish in round one. Maybe he thought he had it to where maybe the ref was going to step in and stop it. But either way, very dominant first round for Brandon Battles, and then Ross comes out in round 2, and Battles just has no gas tank left. You know, he spent it all in the first. And then I seen the finish, man. He landed those just big, long, striking shots.
Yeah.
Brandon, you know, he couldn't defend himself no more. I think it was a good stoppage by the ref. It was just all out of battles at that moment. He couldn't continue, and Ross, you know, found that second gear to, you know, keep throwing those strikes, and knew that the ref was waiting in the wings. And congrats to him, man. You know, the inaugural Cage Titans heavyweight champion. Um, what I mean, between the two of these guys, man, they're both massive heavyweights. So when you put them as like the forefront of like, this is our heavyweight champion, everybody's gonna be like, what the hell? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
either one
Good.
of those guys are imposing dudes to have you know, carry the flag as your heavyweight champion for sure.
Yeah, that'd be insane. And I don't even know if I'm allowed to say this, but after the show, I got in Nick's ear and I was asking about what he thought about the event or whatever. And he mentioned a heavyweight return that could be on the horizon and challenged Ross for the heavyweight strap. Any guesses?
Ooh, a heavyweight return. I think it would have to be Hassan Graham.
Bingo.
Yeah, I think it'd
Imagine
have to
that
be
one.
Hassan Graham.
That'd be a fun fight right there.
It would be, man. And you know, the fans love us some Hassan Graham, man. So I've been waiting to see some fight news for him. So if this is the avenue that it will go, sign me up, man. That'll be a banger for sure.
Hell yeah, man. Well, Case Titans 59 was filled with bangers. This was a great time talking to you, my boy, as
Always.
always. Before I let you get out of here, big boxing fan at heart. We had a big fight just announced. I know you know where I'm going with this one.
Yeah.
Uh, Terrence Crawford and Earl Spence. We have a date. We have
Mhm.
signatures. We have a done deal. July 29th in Vegas. Are you excited? Do
Oh,
you
pumped.
believe it?
I am so excited that I am trying not to be excited. You know what I mean?
Mhm, yeah.
Because I know how these things typically go for boxing, and then it usually just ends up breaking your heart. Uh, so like I said before, I was like, I'll believe it when they're in the ring and the bell rings. But initial thoughts, man, I love both these guys, but Errol Spence has been my guy.
Mm,
Like
mm,
he's been my number one guy, dude. Dead ass for like we're talking like years at this point, you know what I
yeah,
mean? So like back when we were talking like Chris Algieri days, you know what I mean? When he was
yeah,
taking fights like that. So,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, and you know, he reminds me of um, Sugar Ray Leonard a little bit. You know what I mean? So that's where I kind of get I draw that comparison to him, where he's got the power, he's got the speed, he's got the defense, but he's got hands that can put you down at the same time.
Mm,
So whenever and that's like my dad's favorite fighter of all time. So I grew up watching him, and then yeah, man, Errol Spence is just my guy. So, my full bias opinion, I'm taking Errol all day, every day. I know he's coming in. He opened up as a slight underdog, because dude, Bud's an absolute animal, man,
yeah,
absolute stud, complete game all around. Um, but dude, I think this is just going to be such a close contest, man. I think it goes all 12
mm,
for sure. Um, but I think we're in for some high level boxing, some of the highest level boxing that we don't get to see fights like this anymore, man. So it's a treat and it's a pleasure whenever we get to see two of the best go head to head versus each other. What are your thoughts on it though? Who you got?
Oh man, I agree with everything you said. This is one of the ones right here. I think for all us big boxing fans, this is the one at the end of the year where we're gonna circle like, damn, take me back to that night.
Hmm.
And maybe 5 years from now, we'll look back like, damn, I wish we could remember where we were when we seen that fight, like one of those type fights.
Yep.
Um, but I disagree with you, my man. I'm a huge Bud guy. I think Bud's one of them ones. I just think he doesn't have many. He hasn't shown many weaknesses
Hmm.
at all. The guy can bounce side to side, and the instant comparison that gets drawn from him is always Hagler,
Yep.
and that's my favorite guy of that Fantastic Four from the '70s.
Of
That's
course.
Hagler. Look at him right there.
Yes, sir.
That's my guy, man. That's one of my
Yeah.
favorites of all time. So I'm gonna go against you, bro, and I'm going with Bud Crawford. And if you want to put a little friendly wager on it,
Yeah.
uh,
We
we
can
can we
do
can
something for
we
sure.
can we can maybe make that happen.
Yeah, we'll make something happen. We'll think of something fun, and we'll definitely make sure we'll have to, you know, put it in the universe now. We'll have to come on here and, you know, chop it up before that fight for sure, and we'll figure out a little wager that we can announce or something before during that episode that we film. But yeah, man, Bud is one of those guys, man, and Crawford's one of those. These are the guys. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? When we talk about that welterweight division, man. So uh, it's one that's been in the works, in the wings for a couple years now. At this point, it feels like. Um, Not a lot of holes to really pick on either of these
Yeah.
guys' games. So
Yeah.
when you try to analyze the fight, you're like, well, you know, it's hard to find spots where you think each guy are going to be weak, and then it's hard to figure out where you think they're going to excel versus each other because they're just so well rounded. I think it's
Yeah.
going to be one for the ages for sure, man. I do think Errol Spence does have the tougher resume as far as
Mm,
names that he's fought and
mm.
guys that he's beaten. I would say if we're looking at names and resumes, I think Errol has the more impressive resume right now, but I don't think that really matters when those two guys get into the cage and fight.
Yeah, I don't have a good argument against that one, man. I kind of agree with you. But Earl Spence has fought all the top guys at 47, and Crawford really can't say the same. And there wasn't no big names at 40 whenever Crawford was running through that division. So
Mhm.
it's not really his fault, but at the same time, it's like
Yeah.
we wish he were to fought tougher guys. But this is the one where he proves like, hey, I'm him.
Hey, I mean, like I said, he's coming in open as the favorite, you know, so he's the ace. He's technically the ace side if you're looking at betting odds on this one. So it'll be entertaining for sure, man. It'll be entertaining for sure. We could keep talking about what we should save it for when we start going in depth for sure.
Hell yeah, man. We'll save it for a few weeks away. It's at the end of July, which is gonna come up before we fucking know
I
it.
know, right? It's already
Well,
flying by, man. It's already June, my man.
crazy, dude, crazy. But my man, it was great to see you this past Saturday. It's great to link up tonight, chop this up, man. I
Yes,
can't wait
sir.
till we do the next one, and I'll see you for Cage Titan 60, July 22nd.